grabbed my husband's phone by mistake and found messages from my best friend. What I read next destroyed 2 families forever.
At our family barbecue, in front of 30 people, I exposed my husband and childhood best friend. What happened next? Nobody expected.
I never thought the person I trusted most would become the reason my entire family fell apart. My childhood best friend, the one I shared everything with, was sleeping with my husband, and when I exposed them, they didn't just deny it, they declared war on our families. What happened next? Nobody saw it coming, especially not me. My name is Sarah, and I'm 32 years old. I live in Seattle with my husband Mark, or should I say, lived. We've been married for 6 years, together for 9. I work as a marketing manager at a tech company, and Mark is a software engineer. We have what everyone called the perfect life, a beautiful home, successful careers, and plans for starting a family. But there's someone else important in this story. Jake, my childhood best friend. Since we were 7 years old, we grew up next door to each other, went to the same schools, shared every secret. Our families were so close, they celebrated holidays together. Jake was like a brother to me, or so I thought. He was married to Emma for 4 years, and we even had double dates together. Life seemed perfect, until the day I discovered the text message that shattered everything. It was a regular Tuesday morning. I was running late for work and grabbed Mark's phone by mistake. They looked identical. As I was about to put it down, a notification popped up from Jake. Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Emma suspects nothing, and Sarah is clueless. We just need to be more careful. My heart stopped. I stood there, frozen in my kitchen, reading those words over and over. This couldn't be real. Jake, my Jake, and Mark, my husband. I scrolled up with shaking hands. Months of messages, explicit photos, plans to meet up. They'd been seeing each other at Jake's office, at hotels, even at our house when I was away on business trips. They talked about how exciting it was to fool everyone, how they'd almost gotten caught twice, but managed to cover it up, how they laughed about Emma and me being too trusting and naive. I felt like I was going to throw up, but I didn't confront Mark immediately. Something inside me clicked into a cold, calculating mode. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to my email. Then I checked our bank statements. Hotel charges, expensive dinners, gifts I never received. All the evidence was right there. But here's where it gets complicated, and this is where I might have crossed a line. Instead of immediately exposing them, I hatched a plan that would not only reveal their affair but completely dismantle the comfortable lives they'd built on lies. I decided to fake a relationship with Jake publicly to force their hand and expose them both. I know it sounds crazy, but in that moment, with my world crumbling around me, I wanted them to feel the same panic, the same fear of losing everything. I called Jake that afternoon, keeping my voice steady and normal. Hey, I need your advice on something. Can we meet for coffee? It's about Mark. I think something's wrong with our marriage. Jake agreed, immediately thrilled at the opportunity to gather information, or cover his tracks. We met at our usual coffee shop downtown, the one we'd been going to since college. Sitting across from him, looking at his familiar face, the face of someone I'd trusted for 25 years, made my stomach turn, but I smiled and played my role perfectly. I think Mark might be having an affair, I said, watching his reaction carefully. He barely flinched. What? No way. Mark loves you. What makes you think that? He's been distant, working late. His phone is always face down. The usual signs. I paused, then delivered my first move. I'm thinking about hiring a private investigator. I saw a flash of panic in his eyes. That seems extreme, Sarah. Maybe you guys just need to talk. Couples therapy. Maybe you're right, I said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. Thank you for always being here for me, Jake. I don't know what I'd do without you. Over the next 2 weeks, I began my performance. I started calling Jake more frequently, asking him to meet me for lunch, for coffee, for walks in the park. I made sure we were seen together at restaurants, at the mall, at places where mutual friends might spot us. I laughed at his jokes, touched his arm, leaned in close when we talked. I also made sure Mark noticed. I'm meeting Jake for lunch, I'd say casually. Jake and I are going to that new art gallery Jake recommended. This great book. I could see Mark becoming increasingly uncomfortable. but he couldn't say anything without revealing why it bothered him. The irony was delicious. Then I took it further. I created a fake dating profile not using my real name or photos, but enough information that if someone was looking, they'd know it was me. I made sure Jake's computer accidentally had access to it through a shared link. I sent him about something else. I posted on social media more frequently, always including Jake. Photos of us laughing together. Comments about the best friendships, and the people who really know you. I changed my relationship status to, it's complicated. My phone started blowing up. Friends asking if Mark and I were okay. My mom calling worried. But the calls I was waiting for never came. Neither Mark nor Jake confronted me. They were both too guilty, too afraid of exposing themselves. But Emma noticed. Oh, Emma definitely noticed. 3 weeks into my plan, Emma called me. Her voice was tight, controlled. Sarah, we need to talk. Can you come over? When I arrived at their house, Emma was pacing in the living room. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. What's going on between you and Jake? She asked bluntly. This was it. The moment I'd been building but looking at Emma's face, seeing her pain, I felt a wave of guilt. She was innocent in all this. She was being hurt just like me. I made a decision in that split second. Sit down, Emma. I need to show you something. I pulled out my phone and showed her everything. The text messages between Jake and Mark. The hotel receipts. The photos. All of it. Emma's face went white. She sat down heavily on the couch, staring at my phone screen like she couldn't comprehend what she was seeing. How long have you known? She whispered. A month. I've been trying to figure out how to handle it. The meetings with Jake, the social media posts, I was trying to make them nervous. To see if they'd confess. I wanted to force their hand. I'm so sorry, Emma. I never meant to hurt you. Emma looked up at me, and I expected to see anger or betrayal. Instead, I saw something else. Determination. They made fools of us, she said quietly. They laughed about us, called us naive and clueless. Her voice grew stronger. I think it's time we showed them exactly how unnaive we are. Over the next hour, Emma and I formed an alliance. We planned carefully, methodically. We weren't just going to expose the affair, we were going to make sure there were real consequences. First, we gathered more evidence. Emma had access to Jake's computer and found even more incriminating material. Credit card statements showing expensive jewelry. Purchases. Neither of us had received jewelry recently. Emails discussing their future together. Once they could find the right time to leave, they were planning to abandon us, to blow up both families and run off together. Second, we documented everything legally. We each consulted divorce attorneys separately, preparing our cases. In our state, adultery affects asset division and alimony. We made sure every piece of evidence was properly preserved. Third, we decided on the confrontation. We'd do it together, in front of both families. At the annual family barbecue, that was scheduled for the following weekend. Both our parents would be there. Siblings, cousins, everyone who thought our families were so close and perfect. But Emma wanted to add one more element. Let's see how far they'll go, she said. Let's see if they'll actually confess before we expose them. The week before the barbecue, Emma and I each approached our husbands separately, with the same script. I sat Mark down one evening after dinner. I need to talk to you about something serious. He looked nervous immediately. What's wrong? I think I'm falling out of love with you, I said, watching his face carefully. I think I might have feelings for someone else. I expected relief, maybe even hoped that I was making his escape easier. Instead, Mark looked panicked. What, Sarah? No, who is? It Jake. Does it matter who it is? The point is, our marriage isn't working. Maybe we should just end it cleanly. No. Mark stood up, agitated. Sarah, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. Whatever you're feeling, we can work through it. Please don't give up on us. I was stunned. He was actually fighting for our marriage, the same marriage he'd been betraying for months. Emma reported a similar conversation with Jake. He'd begged her to reconsider, promised they could make it work, even suggested they renew their vows. The hypocrisy was staggering, but we stuck to our plan. The barbecue was in 3 days. The night before, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the 25 years of friendship with Jake, the memories with Mark, the family events, the shared history. Was I doing the right thing? Was public humiliation really the answer? But then I remembered those text messages. Sarah is clueless. The laughter, the betrayal, the planning behind our backs. No. They'd made their choice. Now they'd face the consequences. The day arrived, sunny and perfect. Both families gathered in Jake and Emma's large backyard. My parents were there, Mark's parents, Jake's family, Emma's family, siblings, nieces, and nephews. About 30 people total, all laughing and enjoying the beautiful day. Jake was manning the grill. Mark was playing cornhole with his brother. Everyone looked so happy, so normal. Emma and I had prepared carefully. We'd each written speeches and printed out packets of evidence, sanitized versions. Appropriate for family viewing, but damning nonetheless. At 2 p.m., Emma clinked a glass to get everyone's attention. Hi everyone. Sarah and I have an announcement to make. Can everyone gather around? Families clustered together, smiling, probably expecting news about pregnancies or vacations. Emma looked at me. I nodded. She began. For 6 years, our families have been close. We've celebrated holidays together, taken trips together, been there for each other through good times and bad. We've trusted each other completely. People were smiling, nodding. That's why this is so difficult, Emma continued, her voice hardening, because that trust was betrayed in the worst possible way. The smiles started fading. I saw Mark and Jake exchange a panicked look. I took over. For the past 8 months, Jake and Mark have been having an affair. With each other. Silence. Complete, shocked silence. Then chaos erupted. That's insane, Jake shouted. Sarah, what are you doing? Have you lost your mind? Mark was pale. This is crazy. Why would you? Enough. Emma's voice cut through the noise. She held up her phone. We have 8 months of text messages, hotel receipts, photos, bank statements, emails where you discussed your future together. We have everything. I started distributing the packets. We've also filed for divorce. Both of us. The papers will be served on Monday. Jake's mother started crying. Mark's father looked like he might have a heart attack. Siblings were shouting questions. The kids were confused and scared by the adult drama exploding around them. But Jake wasn't done. Instead of apologizing, or showing remorse, he went on the attack. This is because you two are bitter and miserable. He shouted at Emma and me. You've been so controlling, so demanding. Maybe, if you'd been better wives, we wouldn't have looked elsewhere. How dare you? My mother screamed at Jake. Sarah gave you everything. Then Jake's sister spoke up, her voice shaking. Jake, please tell me this isn't true. Please tell me you didn't do this. Jake looked at his sister, at his crying mother, at his father's disappointed face. And something in him snapped. You want the truth? Fine. Yes, it's true. Mark and I have been together, and you know what? I'm not sorry. I'm finally happy. I've been living a lie my whole life, pretending to be someone I'm not, and I'm done. Emma gasped. You're coming out, now, like this. I didn't have a choice. You two forced this. Jake pointed at us accusingly. Mark finally spoke, his voice broken. Jake, stop. Just stop. But Jake was on a roll, years of secrets pouring out in the worst possible way. He talked about struggling with his sexuality, about the pressure to be normal, about falling in love with Mark 2 years ago but being too afraid to leave his marriage. Some part of me might have felt sympathy. Coming out is incredibly difficult. And living a lie must have been painful. But the way he'd done it, the cruelty and deception, the laughing about how clueless we were, that killed any sympathy I might have felt. The barbecue ended in disaster. Families split down the middle, some supporting us, some thinking we'd been too cruel in how we exposed them, some just shell-shocked by the revelations. Jake's father had a medical emergency and had to be taken to the hospital, thankfully. Just a panic attack, but scary nonetheless. That became another thing Jake blamed us for. Over the next week, Jake and Mark both tried to control the narrative on social media. Jake posted about being forced out of the closet and living his authentic truth. Mark was more subdued, posting a simple statement about the end of our marriage and asking for privacy. But our evidence was too thorough. Friends who saw the timelines, the messages, the way they'd mocked us. Public opinion wasn't kind. Jake lost several friends who felt he'd been cruel beyond just hiding his sexuality. Mark's family was devastated, not because he was bi or gay, but because of the betrayal and deception. Emma and I became unexpected support systems for each other. We'd both lost our marriages, but we've gained a genuine friendship forged in shared trauma. The divorces moved forward. In both cases, the documented adultery significantly affected the asset division. Jake had to buy out Emma's half of their house at market value. Mark and I split everything. But I got the house, and he had to pay spousal support. For 3 years, due to the affair. But here's where the story takes another turn. Because about 2 months after, everything exploded. I realized I'd made a terrible mistake. I was having coffee with Emma when my phone rang, unknown number. I usually don't answer those, but something made me pick up. Sarah, it's Mark. I nearly hung up. What do you want? Please, just listen for 5 minutes. If you still hate me after that, I'll never contact you again. Against my better judgment, I listened. I need to tell you the truth. Not the version Jake is telling everyone, and not the version you think you know. The full truth. Over the next 30 minutes, Mark told me a story I wasn't expecting. Yes, he and Jake had been having an affair. But it wasn't what I thought. Mark wasn't gay or bisexual. He'd been sexually assaulted by Jake too. Years earlier when he was drunk at a conference they'd both attended. Jake had taken photos and videos of the assault, and had been blackmailing Mark ever since. The affair was coercion. The text messages that seemed consensual were Mark trying to placate Jake. Trying to keep him calm while he figured out what to do. He'd been seeing a therapist secretly. Trying to work up the courage to come forward. But he was terrified of not being believed. Terrified of losing me. Terrified of what it would do to both families. When I exposed everything, Mark said he felt relieved at first. The secret was out. But then Jake spun the narrative as a consensual affair and coming out story. And Mark realized no one would believe him if he now claimed assault. It would look like backtracking, like trying to avoid consequences. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Mark said, his voice cracking. I know I should have told you. I know I should have gone to the police. But I was ashamed and scared, and I handled it all wrong. I just needed you to know the truth. What Jake did to me wasn't love. It wasn't an affair. It was assault and blackmail. I felt sick. Do you have any proof? The therapist notes. Some emails where I tried to tell Jake to stop. A few voicemails where Jake is threatening to expose the photos if I don't comply. I've been gathering evidence for months, but I was too afraid to use it. Mark, if this is true, you need to go to the police. I know. I'm calling them tomorrow. I needed you to know first. Before it all comes out again. I couldn't stand you thinking I betrayed you willingly. After I hung up, I sat in stunned silence. Emma looked at me with concern. What's wrong? I told her everything Mark had just said. Her face went pale. Sarah, I found something on Jake's computer that I didn't understand at the time. Password-protected files with names that looked like dates. I thought they were work files, and didn't think much of it. But if what Mark is saying is true... We looked at each other. The same horrible realization dawning. What if we'd gotten it all wrong? Emma and I went to the police with Mark the next day. At first, they were skeptical of a man coming forward months after the fact. After a very public divorce scandal, claiming what looked like a consensual affair was actually assault. But Mark had evidence. Text messages where he explicitly said no and I don't want this, that Jake had deleted from Mark's phone. But that still existed in backups. Voicemails where Jake threatened to show the photos to me and to Mark's employer if he didn't cooperate. Emails to his therapist detailing the assault and the ongoing blackmail. Emma provided access to Jake's computer. What they found was horrifying. Jake had assaulted 3 other men over the past 5 years. All people he knew, all men who were married or in relationships. He'd document the assaults and then use the evidence to coerce ongoing sexual contact. He'd built an entire system of manipulation and abuse. The files Emma had seen weren't work documents. They were his trophies. I felt like I was going to be sick. This was my childhood best friend. The person I'd trusted for 25 years. Not just a cheater, but a predator. The investigation moved quickly after that. The other victims came forward once they learned they weren't alone. Jake was arrested and charged with multiple counts of sexual assault, blackmail, and extortion. And I had helped publicly humiliate his victim. I had exposed Mark's trauma to our entire family, thinking I was getting justice for cheating. When really I was furthering his abuse. The guilt was crushing. Emma felt it too. We didn't know, she kept saying. How could we have known? But should we have looked deeper? Should we have asked more questions before jumping to conclusions? I reached out to Mark, and we met at a neutral location, a park bench, where we used to have lunch sometimes during our marriage. I'm so sorry, I said, tears streaming down my face. I'm so sorry. Mark looked older, tired. You didn't know. I should have told you. But I was so ashamed. Society doesn't really believe men can be assaulted. Especially by other men. Especially when there's no physical violence. I thought everyone would think I was lying or that I secretly wanted it. That's not true. I believe you. I believe all of you. We talked for hours. About the assault. About the months of coercion. About how Jake had been so careful to make everything look consensual. How he'd isolated Mark, making him feel like no one would believe him. Like he'd lose everything if the truth came out. Can we ever fix this? I asked. Us. I mean, Mark was quiet for a long time. I don't know. I still love you, Sarah. I never stopped. But I'm not the same person I was before all this. I need therapy. Probably for years. I need to heal. And I don't know if I can trust anyone right now, even you. That's fair, I said softly. I understand. Jake's trial was a media sensation. What had started as a divorce scandal became a criminal case that highlighted how male victims of sexual assault are dismissed and disbelieved. Jake's defense tried to paint all the encounters as consensual, tried to use the men's initial silence as proof that nothing wrong had happened. But the evidence was overwhelming. The threats, the coercion, the systematic pattern of abuse. I had to testify about Jake's character, about our friendship, about what I'd observed. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, standing in a courtroom, admitting I'd known this person my whole life, and never saw the monster underneath. Jake's family was torn apart. His mother refused to believe it at first, insisted her son couldn't have done these things. But as more evidence emerged, even she had to face the truth. His father stopped coming to the trial. His sister gave a victim impact statement about how Jake's actions had destroyed their family and hurt so many people. Emma testified to. She talked about finding the files, about how Jake had manipulated her, used their marriage as cover for his crimes. She talked about the innocent friendship between our families that he'd exploited and destroyed. In the end, Jake was convicted on multiple counts. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. During his sentencing, Jake finally spoke directly, but instead of taking responsibility, he blamed everyone else, blamed society for making him hide who he was, blamed his victims for not being clear about their boundaries, blamed me and Emma for exposing him. He never apologized. Not once. Watching him being led away in handcuffs, I felt a complex mix of emotions. This was someone I'd loved like a brother for most of my life, and I'd never really known him at all. The year following Jake's conviction was about healing. Mark and I attended couples therapy. Even though we weren't sure if we'd stay together, we needed to process the trauma. The betrayal, his trauma from the assault and coercion, my trauma from unknowingly exposing his abuse, our shared trauma of having our lives destroyed by someone we trusted. Some days were good. Mark would smile, make jokes, seem almost like his old self. Other days he couldn't get out of bed, couldn't stand to be touched, couldn't handle being around people.com. I learned about PTSD, about trauma responses, about how healing isn't linear. I learned to recognize Mark's triggers and how to support him without being overbearing. I learned that sometimes love means giving someone space, even when you want to hold them close. Emma became one of my closest friends. We started a support group for partners of assault survivors, helping other people navigate the complicated feelings that come with learning someone you love has been victimized. The guilt, the anger at the perpetrator, the confusion about how to help. Mark started advocating for male sexual assault survivors, doing interviews about his experience and the barriers men face in coming forward. It was his way of taking back control, of making something meaningful from his trauma. Our families slowly healed too. Both sets of parents apologized for initially doubting the assault claims. They'd been so caught up in the scandal, so shocked by the revelations, that they hadn't looked deeper at what was really happening. 8 months after the trial, Mark and I went on a date. A real date, like we used to do before everything fell apart. We went to a nice restaurant, held hands, talked about our dreams for the future. I think I want to try again, Mark said. For real this time, not just therapy and processing trauma, but actually being married again, building a life together. I squeezed his hand. I'd like that too. It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. We had hard work ahead of us. But for the first time in over a year, I felt hopeful.com. 2 years have passed since that barbecue that changed everything. Mark and I are still together, still working on our marriage, but in a good place. We're even talking about starting that family we'd planned before everything fell apart. Emma has started dating again. She met someone kind and genuine, who knows her whole story and loves her anyway. Jake is in prison, and I haven't spoken to him since the trial. His family sends occasional updates through Emma, but mostly we've all moved on. Some wounds are too deep to heal with forgiveness. The other survivors are healing too. Some have become friends, bonding over their shared experience. Others prefer privacy, and we respect that. Looking back, I regret how I handled the initial discovery. The public humiliation, the revenge plot, the assumption that I knew the whole story. If I could do it over, I'd ask more questions, dig deeper, maybe even confront Mark privately, instead of jumping to conclusions. But I've learned that life rarely gives us we make decisions with the information we have, and sometimes we get it wrong. The key is learning from those mistakes, and doing better going forward. I've learned that betrayal is complicated, that things aren't always what they seem, that sometimes the villain in your story is really a victim, and sometimes your best friend for 25 years is someone you never really knew. Most importantly, I've learned that healing is possible. Not easy, not quick, but possible. If you're going through something similar, whether you're being cheated on, or you've survived assault, or you're supporting someone who has, know that you're not alone. Reach out for help. Talk to professionals. Don't let shame or fear keep you silent. And that's my story. The messy, complicated, painful truth about how my perfect life fell apart and how I'm slowly putting it back together. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share your own experiences in the comments sometimes. Just knowing someone else understands can make all the difference. Thank you for listening to my story. Take care of yourselves, and remember, healing is always possible.